entertainment.
Hello and welcome to Codelicious. In this video we demonstrate how you can create a 3D carousel from scratch using Vanilla JavaScript and CSS. This is part 2 of the tutorial. Part 1 link is in the description and pinned comment down below. Before we continue, please subscribe to Codelicious, like this video, and comment down below. Now let's begin. Now that our slider items are now allocated in their respective positions, we are able to work on the next and previous buttons. So we are going to first look at or access the previous button and the next button. And right now we are going to actually create a variable here, and we're going to call this pause. And this will basically track how many times the carousel is changed. So we're going to set this to n at first. N is 8, so it's first set at 8. So when it's being incremented, it will change. When it's being decremented, it will change, and we'll be doing the incrementation and decrementation in the respective previous button and next button arrow functions. So actually the constant is called prev button. So we're going to add an event listener, and the event we want it to listen for is for a click. And basically, so we're going to create an arrow function for this, and basically we want the update slider to be addressed so that the positioning, so that the width and height and the positioning of the element will change. This will become the last one. So basically the original positioning is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is the true positioning of our element. So this is the first element, it's the second element. So we want the first element, when next is clicked, that is, the first element will become the last element, and the second element will become the first element, and we're able to do this with pause, with the incrementation of it, and with modulus. So we're going to just apply this for next as well. Though for prev we're going to decrement, so it's going to be pause minus 1, and we want to get the remainder of that. And then the same thing applied for pause plus, but we're going to just increment it. So for example, if the next button is clicked, the pause is currently 8 right now, and if the next button is clicked right now, it will become 9, and when we divide it by 8, it will give a remainder of 1. So then pause becomes 1. So now 1 plus 1, if next is clicked again, will give 2, and the remainder of this would be just 2, the original value, because it is less than 8. And then if the next one is clicked, pause is right now 2, so 2 plus 1 would give 3 divided by 8, which would give 3. Okay, so now we're going to see how this all makes sense right now as we change the value of the multiplier. And so right now, the elements that we have positioned it as will always be that position. So this will always be 0. This will always have an index of 1. This will always have an index of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But we're able to change it based on pause, because pause basically tracks the movements of the carousel. So we are going to add on to this current pause. So now we don't want it to stay 0 if the next or previous button was clicked. Well, before we do that, we have to first also take this pause value, and we want to apply it in this function. So we're going to apply it in our function as well. So now we're able to access the pause variable. Okay, it is very important to position the variables in the same way that it was applied here, otherwise we'll get wrong values and wrong results. So now that that's set, what we're going to do is we're going to create a mini function, mathematical function. So what we're going to do is we're going to add onto this current pause, and we're going to add this. So we're going to take the number of elements and we're going to subtract it by pause, and then we want to get the remainder of that. And we're just going to put this into brackets. Okay, so now what we want to do is, or what this basically does is, right now it's at 0. Okay, no, the next button hasn't been clicked, so, or nor previous, so it should stay 0. So 0 plus, let's test our function, 8 minus pause, which is also set to n. So right now it's 8. 8 minus 8 is 0, so 0 minus plus 0 is 0. Okay, and we divide that by n, which is 8. Just give 0. If we say maybe the fourth value, which is value 3, 8 minus 8 would give 3, because 3 plus 0 is 3, and so there's no change, so that would be 3. However, when pause changes, that's when it helps us. When pause changes, that's when the values of the slide item of the list item will change. So now when we apply it here, pause, when the next one is clicked, to pause will change from 8 to 1 because pause becomes 9, but then we want to get the remainder of that to ensure that the value is not any value greater than 8. So now that becomes 1 and that becomes 1. So now 0 plus 7 is simply 7. And when we divide it by n, it will give the result of 7, n being 8. Okay, so, and that's what we want. We want the first element when the next one is clicked to become the last element. And then we want the second element to become the first element. So let's see with the second element. So right now we're working on the second element. The second element should become 0. So 1 should turn to 0 with our variable. So now let's go through this. 1 plus 1 being second value, 8 minus 1, which indicates that the next one has been clicked once. Okay, so 1 plus 8 minus 1, which is 7, will be 8. And when we get the remainder of that, 8 divided by 8 will give no remainder, so that would be 0. And then let's test for the third element. The third element should turn from the value, the index of 2 to the index of 1. So 3 should turn into 1. So now 3 plus 7 would be 10. 10 divided by 8 would give the remainder of, starting from 0, if 8 is 0, 9 is 1, 10 is 2. And that's what we wanted. The first element becomes the last, the second element, the original second element becomes the first, and the original second element, third element becomes the second. So, and this also works for previous. So right now pause is 8 if the previous button was clicked, so it becomes 8 minus 1, which is 7. 7 divided by n would give the remainder of 7. So the value hasn't changed, it stays as 7. So basically, that means the first element, if the previous one is clicked, the first element becomes the second element. So 0 should turn, let me just put this in brackets, 0 should turn into the number 1, which is the second element. So current pause is 0 plus n, which is 8, minus the current pause, which the previous one is clicked, so it becomes 7. So 0 plus 8 minus 7 is 1, and then divided by 8 would give 1. So 0 has successfully turned to 1. Okay, and it works for all of the other elements as well. So right now when we test our theory, when we click on next, we can see that the first element becomes the last, the previous second element becomes the first, and so on. Click on next again, the same case. And when we click on previous, it goes backwards, so basically anti-clockwise. Anti-clockwise, 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 and we can continue. And it creates a very smooth transition because we added transition property in CSS much earlier. So it works for previous, next. Even when we use it randomly and dynamically, it works just like we want it to. Alright, so now we want the width and height of these elements to be different now that we have sorted the carousel. Okay, so we want this first element to be the biggest, and then becomes smaller, smaller, even smaller, then smallest. And then we want this to be the same size as this, we want this to be the same size as this, and we want this to be the same size as this. So we have to create a new variable, and we're going to call this let new size. And we're going to assign the value in this if statement, and then we're going to check. Basically we're going to set a specific width and height, or a particular, not a multiplier, but a particular value that the width and height should be reduced by. So all of these have a width and height of 200 pixels. So we want this to be reduced by 0. We want this to be reduced by 1. We want this to be reduced by 2. We want this to be reduced by 3. We want this to be reduced by 4, and then we want this to be reduced by 3, by 2, by 1. Alright, so now we're going to create the if statement, and basically we want to call the multiplier. And we want to know whether, in order to ensure that the last 3 elements are going to be not based on like 5, 6, 7, right now it's not shown because this is not complete, 5, 6, 7, it should have the values of 3, 2, 1 instead. So that is the value, and that value is basically by how much the width and height is reduced by. So we want to know whether the current value that is being processed, or the current position, considering that maybe the next button or the previous button is clicked, we want to know whether that is greater than the half of the number of elements that there are. Okay, so right now there are 8 elements, so we want to know whether the current position that the carousel is currently processing is greater than 4 in our case, because 8 divided by 2 is 4. So if it's greater than 4, then this should be a different value. It should not be 5, 6, 7. It should be 3, 2, 1. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. That should be the values that they should attain. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, if that is true, then we want the new size to be a different value. So we're going to be subtracting. Okay, so basically the value that we're going to be subtracting the value by is by the number of elements that there are, which is 8. So for example, 8 minus 5 is 3, 8 minus 6 is 2, 8 minus 7 is 1, and that's what we want. We want 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we can do that now. N minus the number of elements that there are in total minus the current position that is currently being processed. And now we're going to add a little more to this, but first we're going to create the else statement. So we want there to be that new size. If it is less than n divided by 2, then we just want it to be basically the value that we've set in multiplier, the current position that it is in, considering whether next button has been clicked or previous button has been clicked. So now we're going to set the width and height, and with that we're going to have to remove the temporary values that we've added here. So we're going to remove this because it's no longer needed, and the width and height will be more dynamic. So we're going to set it here, and now what we want to do is subtract it by new size. Subtract it by new size. However, it is not reduced by much, because basically we're doing in actuality element diameter is assigned to 200, so to be 200 minus, for example, 0, 200 minus 1, 200 minus 2, 200 minus 3. So let's say we multiply this value by 10, multiply this value by 10, then we would see a greater change. Now it's bigger, it reduces, smallest, and then these two are the same, these two are the same size, and these two are the same size. Alright, so if you like it as it is, then that's fine. However, we're going to increase the difference, and so we're going to multiply this by element diameter, and you'll see they're really huge. That's fine. And then we're going to divide this by 10 and divide this by 10. So now we see a greater effect, this one being the biggest and this one being the smallest. So now if we put this into practice, for example, the current position that the current position of the element that is being processed will be, for example, the fourth element. So that's position 3, since positioning starts from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, that's the fourth element. Then we're going to multiply this by 200, and so that gives us 600. Now, so new size would be 600. So this would be basically doing 200 minus 600 when we apply it here, because the element diameter for our side is 200 pixels, and that would give us a negative number, hence why we divided it by 10, so that it would be 60. So now the effect is slightly less, so 200 minus 60 will give us 140. Okay, so we can also continue to play with these numbers. For example, we can increase or reduce the amount that is divided by, which will increase the difference. So you can see there's a larger difference, so you can play around with the numbers. Okay, so now essentially our carousel is fully completed, and when we click on next, we can see that the positioning of our elements change. You know, this becomes the biggest, the first element. This would be the original first element. It now became the smallest, and when we continue to click next, it becomes the biggest now. And we can also go previous, and we can see that the carousel looks neat right now. So there's just one more thing that we need to fix, that is the rotation, or the difference from the first element to the last element. We see that it looks like the circle is not completely straight. It looks slightly diagonal, the difference between the first element and the last element, if you can see that. So we're going to reduce a small offset value, and we're going to decrement it by 0.05. So that creates a more symmetrical carousel, and we can see that the last element is positioned directly behind the first element, whereas when we removed this value, we saw that it looked a little towards that side, so we want it to be straight. So that's just a small thing that you can add. And another thing is we can also play with the rotation. Now that there's images, we can also change the value from 75 degrees to 90 degrees. So if you wanted your carousel to look like this, which also looks really cool, you can do so. Thank you for watching this video. This was part 2 of the carousel tutorial. In part 1, we demonstrate how you can turn a 2D carousel into a 3D carousel with JS and maths. Subscribe to Codelicious for more videos like these and stay tuned.